So let's say you're 16, you break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and your AI writes you a song that's like, makes you feel better. It doesn't even have to be good. It's possible to imagine like AI generated things having meaning for us, because things don't have to be good for us to find them meaningful. And if in some cruel joke, like Chapel Roan turned out to just be an AI, it could still be true that we find value in being together around this art.
Hi, welcome back to The Intersect. I'm your host, Corrine. Today I'm joined by Josh Rothman, a longtime writer and editor at The New Yorker. His recent piece, AI is Coming for Culture, caught my attention in a big way. Josh argues that beyond shaping our jobs, our politics, and our well-being, AI is reshaping culture entirely. And this is not just about AI-generated content. It's about how we relate to each other through art, movies, music, and books. Think Gaga's Little Monsters or Taylor Swift's Swifties. Could community like this form around AI music? And if the answer is yes, we ask, is that such a bad thing? Is it possible for AI to be the true collaborator that many of us consider it to be? And what does it mean to mistake pattern-generated responses for original ideas? Let's get into it. Josh Rothman, welcome to The Intersect.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great. It's great for you to be here. Your recent piece in The New Yorker, where you're a staff writer, on AI coming for culture, got my brain going. And maybe you could just start by explaining the central thesis of your piece.
I mean, thanks for reading. It's a long piece. So basically what this piece is, it's an attempt to kind of start to think about how artificial intelligence will affect the movies we watch, the books we read, the stuff we listen to, and our relationship to it and our relationship to art and culture generally. I guess there's sort of two big ideas that I wanted to explore. One big idea is I wanted to just like start the conversation by asking like, what is the value we get out of culture, cultural life? And could we get the same value out of cultural life that has mixed into it artificially generated culture that isn't made by people, but is made by computers, or made by computers sort of at the behest of people who don't themselves make the stuff, but they just like prompt it. And the other is I just wanted to start to think about what will it look like in the next few years as we start to just use AI more and more in everyday ways as readers, listeners. Like, what types of experience will we have? How will the apps change? Like, how will books change? How will podcasts change? Just what will it be like? What types of things will we be enjoying or be freaked out by? This is like one of these subjects that I think we're going to be surprised by, like what we like, what we don't like, what unnerves us, what we find to be rewarding. I guess the big thesis of the piece is just that I think culture is about people. So I think that what we value when we read or listen or watch is actually human beings. And so, I worry that AI technology is going to replace the people behind our cultural life. And so culture is going to become less and less about connection and more about just entertainment, which is a different thing.
Let's just break down first, when you talk about AI, and then when you talk about culture, you refer to AI. These are a series of patterns. So I just think that's important to lay out, and then also your belief of what culture is, so we can understand the central thesis. Yeah.
So I think there's like two sides to what we mean by culture or cultural life. Like, the first side is the cultural products that we're into. So the specific things, like we like certain movies, we enjoy certain TV shows, we read certain books, we follow certain people on Instagram, we listen to certain podcasts. Like, those are cultural products. They're discrete things. And AI can make those things. It can make some of them better than others. And, it's going to get better at making some of them faster. It can make photographs. It can write songs. And one aspect of culture is more and more of those cultural products are going to be made by computers instead of by people. That's one side of culture, is like cultural products. And another side of culture is cultural life. The idea we have that when we read a novel, there's a person behind the novel, like a writer, and they're cool, and they live in some cool place, and they live a literary life. It's the idea that when we watch a show, there's actors in the show and they're real people and we're interested in who they are. It's the idea that when we listen to a song, there's a musician and they live the life of a musician. Like you never really had to ask yourself, is this thing I'm listening to, this cultural product I'm enjoying, is it created by a cultural person? Those two things were just always, obviously related. And now they're not going to be as related anymore. And that's one of the strange things that, we're all going to have to deal with.
In some ways, this all seems big and scary. AI is coming for culture. We're in a simulation. You can go really existential with this stuff.
Right.
Or, sometimes in a sort of what can go right and this is how we live now kind of a universe. Your idea of, you hear a beautifully produced pop song versus you're hearing someone do a version of it live. But as the user, as the audience, we somehow can grasp the difference of those things. And in modern music, we've got a lot of, I don't want to say robots, but sort of involved in getting that to sound, to like master that down to something like so super slick, right? It's not, and we've accepted that. So are we in some moment where that is being, these new formats of how audiences consume things are being adopted? It's not all bad, even though there's a lot of slop.
Yeah, totally. I'll tell you like a story maybe. When AI video tools first started appearing, so those are the programs that you can use to make video that looks realistic just by typing in a box, basically. So in my case, I could say, make a video of a middle-aged guy sitting in a room with, talking to a microphone, and behind him you can see his house and there's a beach behind through the window and, et cetera. And it would produce something that looks like what I'm seeing right now in this video chat that we're in. When AI video tools like that became available, everyone was messing around with them. And one of the things that was really weird about it was when you look at the videos that people are posting, it's kind of like unclear how much of the idea for the video, how much of what you're watching is made by a person, and how deep does the AI go? One of the shows I got really into around that time was called AI or Die. And it's this kind of like crazy sketch comedy show that's made all using AI tools. And, when I was watching it, I couldn't figure out like how much of this is people and how much of it is computers. So for example, like, did people write the script or did AI write the script in response to someone who wrote into a box, write me a script for a comedy sketch? Were the voices that I was listening to in the sketches, were they people who were actors, or were they AI voices too? I talked to the guys who make this. It's three friends who are filmmakers in the traditional sense, and they also make these AI videos. And it turns out like it's really human. It's like a really human production. And they write everything, and it's kind of artisanal. And that's like one end of the spectrum of possibility. It's like, in a way, it's like totally synthetic, but it's kind of like if you watch an animated movie, if you watch like a Pixar movie, like computers have been used at every step of that process, but the fingerprints of human creativity are like all over it, right? And on the other side, there's this band called the Velvet Sundown. They became sort of a famous band.
That's the fake AI band.
The fake AI band. And there's a lot of fake bands that exist now that are on Spotify, and you can listen to them. And I think if you heard them like while you were in the mall or like in a coffee shop or a hotel lobby, you would never think twice. You'd never ask yourself, is this human or AI? The thing that's crazy about the AI bands is you can make an AI band so easily. There's an app website called Suno, Suno. You can go there and you can just type in a description of a song. And in about 2.5 minutes, it'll make a song you did so little to make it. That's the point. The AI or Die guys are working around the clock making these AI generated videos, but their creativity is all over them. But it's also possible to just be totally on autopilot and just say like, I want to hear a song that sounds like this. And then it gets made. So like within the world of AI stuff, there's going to be like a range where some of it is art and some of it is slop. And that term AI slop just means the least human, I guess you could say, of the AI culture that's produced, the most automated AI culture.
It's like AI on a spectrum from a creativity perspective. But when you talk about the AI or Die guys, it's 3 guys that are working together and they're collaborating and then they're using these tools to make something, right? It really struck me in your piece about collaboration, and it's kind of spooked me a little bit because the term like AI companion, AI collaborator, that is what you're like your second brain, that is an extension of you. The idea of calling something a collaborator when it's really actually not collaborating, like the heart of, getting to that creative space where you've got some tension, some friction. If this is just pattern recognition, can you really get to a new creative place if you are just relying on even your own thoughts being, coming back to you via AI?
Yeah. So I think like one of the most interesting conversations I had for this piece was with a TV writer named Carly Mensch, and Carly co-created the show Glow. We were talking about, so like, what happens in a writer's room? What do writers do when they work together? And the thing is that some of what they do is just silly. Like some of what writers do is like spitball a bunch of bad ideas. And something AI is good at is spitballing bad ideas. So if you say, give me 10 ideas for this episode, it'll give you 10. You say 10 more, 10 more, 10 more, 10 more. There's something useful there. And I think people will use AI for that kind of a purpose very usefully. As a writer, I use AI in a sort of collaborative fashion, I guess, in the sense that sometimes I'll take an idea I have and I'll put it into Claude, and I'll say, like, why is this wrong? How would so-and-so respond to this? How would someone who thinks such and such react? So these are all ways of collaborating, I guess, with an AI program that are like genuinely useful. But then, like there's a deeper kind of collaboration, which is the real thing, which is where, like I'm working on a screenplay with a friend right now, and we're really different people. And whenever we talk about what we're doing, I feel like, he's a space alien talking to me with his weird ideas. And I'm sure he feels the same. And it's obvious that is what's going to produce something good, is that we both have something unique about us, and we have ideas that are just ours and perspectives that are ours. And in fact, want different things, like want to do different stuff. And the tension is where the creativity comes from. And that tension comes from us being real human beings with actual tastes and lives and stuff. And an AI can't do that because it doesn't have a life. It's not alive, and it doesn't have any point of view. I think if you're in a relationship, there's some element of having a partner, which is like small talk and company. Then there's another part, which is like the real stuff. And it's hard to see how an AI companion could give you that real stuff, but it's easy to see how it could give you the company, to some degree.
Let's bring this to a communal space. So culture, can culture exist in like a vacuum of one? I don't know, but maybe we're about to find out. I mean, when I listened to you or, read your piece about how you start your mornings, and, then you're going to Apple News, and then you're listening to this, maybe you're watching a bit of YouTube. These are all, as we know, algorithmically driven content feeds that we've curated, but we've curated these things by way of algorithms. So if we've already moved into this space where we're in our bubbles, our very specific culture bubbles, right? Call it, like, take the politics out of it. AI moving us even further into that because we can personalize by way of my own playlist and the AI music that's woven right into my own playlist that I just absolutely love. Do we lose this idea of culture and like within community, and it's really baked for one? Yeah. How do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. So let's say you're 16, you break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and your AI writes you a song that's like, makes you feel better. It doesn't even have to be good. It just has to be something that you keep in your playlist for a year or 2 or 3 or 4. It's possible to imagine like AI generated things having meaning for us, because things don't have to be good for us to find them meaningful. That's why we hate watch TV shows. We use stuff for our own purposes, and it means something to us. That's totally legitimate in a totally familiar way that we relate to stuff. And we use culture to like connect to each other. So Swifties are in it for Taylor Swift, and they're in it for each other too. And if through in some cruel joke, like Chapel Roan turned out to just be an AI, like it could still be true that like we find value in being together around this art. But there's also like obviously a real way that we want community. And, the algorithm is interesting because we live in these filter bubbles, but actually we also live in a time of real mass movements, like mass culture. So anyway, I think one of the things that's like going to be weird is some people are going to go really deep down this private culture. That's how I think of it, private culture. Like there are going to be people who just, they love it. There's a game that I played for a while with ChatGPT. It's called Deep Game. And it's basically like a choose your own adventure novel that ChatGPT writes for you. You choose the genre and then it kind of writes it in real time and you make choices. And it's really cool because you get to play this game that no one else has had access to. I think some people are really going to love that. Some people are really going to not love it. And I can sort of imagine a world where like we have that as part of our cultural life, but I can't really picture that we're going to like give up as a society upon the communal aspect of culture. I feel it's like too important. Even if I think we'll even be able to find communal meaning around AI culture. I think I would find that like more likely than the disappearance of communal culture. Like, can I just say like, so for this piece, I interviewed Jaron Lanier, who's a like Silicon Valley pioneer, and he helped invent virtual reality. And he outlined.
He coined the phrase. I just think about him a lot as he coined the phrase. I'm like, oh, he must have. That was like a far out thought he was having at the time.
Yeah, he's an amazing person. But Jaron outlined for me this like very scary scenario, which is that you enjoy cultural things online, and you think that lots of other people enjoy them, but they're just AI. And it's not so crazy. Like right now, when you go on YouTube and there's a video you watch, there's all these people who liked it and commented and like, do you know that they really exist? When you play computer games and you chat with the other players, like, do you know they're real people? You don't. Yet you still have the impression that you're in the crowd, and that's one of the things, I don't know if you're like this, but when I watch like a YouTube video that I find funny or interesting or whatever, almost the first thing I do is I scroll down to read the comments and I see which one's got a lot of thumbs up and stuff. And like, that's a behavior for myself. I'm sort of waiting for the penny to drop for myself. Like, when am I going to start scrolling and be like, but none of this might be fake. None of these people might be real. This funny comment that got a zillion likes might just be synthetic. And how will that change how I relate to that? I would say like communally enjoying the community around YouTube videos is already a fairly thin experience for me. It's already makes me feel kind of lonely just doing that. And it will get only thinner. Like when I really start to internalize that a lot of that could be fake. So I just imagine, like, to me, I think it's all going to make me a little more hungry for real people, for some sort of proof that this is made by a real person, and a little bit more skeptical of representations of community, like a little bit more skeptical of that and a little less satisfied by it, if that makes sense.
Totally. In your article, you talk about dead internet theory. Can you tell us a bit about what that is?
Yeah, I mean, dead internet theory is this idea that I guess it started to sort of emerge a few years ago. And at the time it was sort of, I don't want to say conspiratorial, but it was like fanciful. And the idea was that like the internet is fake, that it's just all automated, so that when you read web pages, when you search for something and you get all these news articles back and you're like, but did a person write this? Dead internet theory is this sort of vibe, I guess, that the internet, which used to feel like this big social place, it now feels like you're sort of like alone in a hall of mirrors, and that you're being deceived. For me, like a place where dead internet theory has really felt sort of acute is Reddit. I have various, rabbit holes on the internet, and Reddit is one of them. And I like reading these subreddits that are about people's real life experiences. So these are like, am I overreacting? Or there's one called R Stories. And you just more and more, you start to feel like these stories they either are AI, they were written by AI in some elaborate scheme. Like someone wanted to get a lot of karma, so they spam Reddit with AI generated stories. Or like they might as well be AI, which is a sort of damning way of judging human output, that it's just like so generic.
Are you still reading it though? You're still reading it.
No, it's kind of lost its sparkle.
Oh, okay.
What's fun about it is not being in a detective story trying to figure out is it true or not. That's not why I got pulled into it. I got value from the idea that this was authentic. And like, I don't think there's anything that can replace that.
You're looking for human stories. You want to understand fear, suffering, sadness, all of the things that, why we read stories, real stories. That's going to go somewhere else. That already has gone somewhere else in some way. Even in the sort of, I would say, last year or so with this like, super, super rise of AI, but also deep fakes.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of notion that people are going back to following people themselves and that's what they want in their stories, that is persisting in some way. And kind of the understanding the human struggle, I think that's a question of whether AI can replicate that on a level that satisfies us, because it's like we seek it out in so many ways. And particularly, I would just say in this creator world.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to go back in time and remember like when Twitter was new. So when Twitter was new, the whole premise was that if you read like let's say there was a writer that you liked and you read her articles somewhere, well, they were like long and carefully edited and they seemed incredibly mediated and processed and so on. But then if you read her tweets, you would be certain that like, no news organization or whatever would, or publishing house would care about what someone wrote in these like little tiny tweets. So you knew they had to be authentic. And this idea, like that just seems like harder and harder to, like the polarity is reversed now. It's like you kind of want proof that the thing is authentic and real. So now if you go to somebody's Substack and there's like 50 posts on Substack and they're all really long and written in a very particular way, then you're like, this is probably the product of a real person. The ground always shifts and you're always going to be like, but what's the new proof that this person is real? Like as a journalist, one of my theories about journalism is that behind journalism is a sort of scenario, like a sort of imaginative scenario that readers have. The scenario is a writer who's fundamentally like me, just a sort of real person, not an expert. They went out in the world and they tried to get answers to these questions. And this article is the report on the answers that they could pull together. You want there to be a there. It's what makes it interesting. Like I've listened to some AI generated podcasts and it's cool because it sounds real, but there's no, that it could go on forever. It doesn't record an actual conversation that happened. I'm not saying there's not going to be people who like that, because there are going to be people who like the ability to listen to a podcast on anything because they can prompt a podcast into existence. So it's not like AI podcasts are pointless, but they're going to be weird to the rest of us because we're going to want something that has a reality behind it.
So in your story, you talk about testing Google's Notebook LM. You put some of your past writing into this AI and turned it into a podcast. And then listening back to it, you describe it like with unease and delight. Talk about how it's changed your relationship to your own past work.
So Notebook LM, like I originally used it on all sorts of boring stuff. And then I uploaded a bunch of my old articles to it. So like, there's a lot of things I've written that I just frankly don't remember that well because I wrote them many years ago. And, so the first thing is like AI is so good at doing this. It's so good at taking something in one form and like turning it into a different form, like taking an article and turning it into a podcast, or taking something long and making it something short. It's so good at that. So one thing was just like the initial wow factor of how cool it was to listen to some article I had written rendered as a podcast. Then, it really gets you thinking. You realize that like, okay, the future is going to be that people will get to choose how they experience stuff. Like as a writer, I produce a product that's like some people like to read. Some people don't like to read. Yeah. Like in my family, I have like plenty of members of my family. They're like, what have you done lately? But they don't want to read it. Like,
are you like giving them new AI formats of your work to see?
They're just not readers. Yeah. But I could totally be like, here, listen to this. Like, and they would, and the future is that producers are not going to have as much control over the form of the thing. The thing they make is going to be totally malleable by the audience who are going to have access to these tools. And that's weird, and it makes you think like, what did I produce? Like, what is the essence of it? And then also, once things are transformed, they're no longer the thing I made. That was actually useful. Like, that was actually interesting to discover that, an idea that sounded so cool to me seemed a little more banal when presented by these other people. I'd say overall, it makes you think, like, there are going to be people who want the original version. And then there's going to be lots of people who want another version, like a version of their own choosing, or who encounter other versions of this thing that you made. And that's going to be good in some ways because it's going to expand the reach of the thing you make. And it's going to be bad in some ways because the real the real cultural thing you made is going to be more of a niche sort of product, or it's going to be like for super fans.
How did that change your own relationship to your past work?
I write a column for the New Yorker most weeks, and I've been writing as a journalist for like a long time. So there's like a lot of words of mine on the internet that AI has analyzed and read. And it's possible to go into ChatGPT and say, what would I think about this? What would I think of this book that I haven't read? Can you give me a shorter version, say half the length, but still written in the same style? And it will do a pretty good job of doing that. At first, I found this like really unsettling. And then lately, I've started to feel like almost good about it. The writing that I've done is more accessible in this like different way. And then I also don't like that, like all the effort I put in to particular words, to particular formulations is like gone. Some types of artists, some creators are already living this way. They're already doing it this way. The idea that there's no canonical version, like no final version, there's just like the version that fits into your life, or the version that person made at that time, but that it could be different. It's kind of like this world of the remaster, the remix. Like that seems like maybe more important in an AI world. It feels like now when you write something, you're both publishing it and you're like contributing to some machine that is going to like learn from it and regurgitate it later.
You mentioned earlier about collaborating with AI. You're using it in some of your work. Are there any other ways you're using AI to sort of inform your piece in your life, how you're doing your life? Yeah, that you like to share?
Yeah, I guess I'm always messing around, right? And trying to figure out how it can be useful. In my work, I use it a lot. Like I don't have a research assistant, so I use AI a lot as though I had one. And I use it a lot in this kind of like, I wouldn't say bouncing an idea off of it, but just kind of like asking for responses, asking for what's wrong with what I said. A couple times I've actually used AI in a very intense way to learn stuff. So a couple of years ago, I profiled Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, sort of a AI researcher who invented deep learning, I guess you could say. And in order to do that, I really needed to learn a lot about a highly technical field with a lot of math in it. And ChatGPT was my tutor and gave me quizzes. And I could do this all while I was like shaving in the morning. I could have these experiences. It's like incredibly valuable. In a way, AI has made me more willing to admit that I don't understand. Like the fact that I can ask questions about any subject and I don't like, who can I ask questions of without embarrassing myself? I'm not going to like ask like my wife dopey questions, not my editors. So having this non-human, text box that can just like explain is really helpful to me.
I have a few kind of like rapid fire sort of, I just kind of want your take. What will happen to originality?
You mean how will AI affect how original things are? Is that sort of the question?
And right, that's the question.
I guess I think that the real source of originality is reality. So I think like the reason why there's new stories to tell is because new and crazy stuff keeps happening in real life. Not just because our minds like just create new things that we've never thought of before. I think like life is crazy, the world is crazy, and life is stranger than fiction. So I think a lot of originality comes from responding to like the actual, real, unpredictable world. And since AI systems are sort of trapped in a universe of what's been written, what's been said, what's been created in the past, and they don't have as much access to it's not that it's not that you can't get interesting things you've never seen before, but they have a certain flavor. Like they're original recombinations of cultural artifacts, which is really different from like a novel that narrates an experience that you didn't know anyone could have had. So I think there are certain ways where people who live real lives will remain more original than AIs that just work with text.
So our ability to sort of narrate that reality in and of itself is one of the most interesting, things. That I love that. And I guess to go back a little bit to sort of dead internet theory, I mean, what are the consequences of living in that?
So some large proportion of what I get out of the internet is stuff where I don't care whether it's fake. Like yesterday, I wanted to learn how to repair something in my house. I don't care whether the YouTube video is fake. And actually, the fact that AI can generate content infinitely means that I'm more likely to find a YouTube video about the very specific thing I want to know. But I think that is a reason why we use the internet. It's a reason why we use platforms, but it's not the core reason. Like facts are not the core, as we know too well. They're not the core reason. We want to find our tribe online. And I just don't think that our tribe is synthetic. Maybe what you find is other people who like the same fake stuff that you like. That's a universe. In which case you're actually liking real stuff because you're liking the other real people. But it will matter to us, and I think people will care. I find it really hard to picture a universe in which we're all really quite happy to be talking to ourselves, basically, all the time. And I think it's notable that the main reason, like if you were to rewind to when smartphones were invented and you were to say like, well, what is it going to be used for? And everyone would have said it's like information at your fingertips. You're going to use it for like learning this and trading stocks and all this kind of stuff. But actually it turns out it's like sending photos of your brunch to other people, like your friends. That's actually what you use it for. You actually use it for dating, like finding, like if you use it for other people, that's what that technology turned out to be most valuable for. So it just seems like, that's a sign, that's a signal that we care that there's someone on the other end of the phone, as it were.
As it were, we want to like fake stuff together with other real people. Yeah. Josh Rothman is a staff writer at The New Yorker. You can find his article, AI is Coming for Culture, in our show notes. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining us on The Intersect.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thank you. So my conversation with Josh was sort of fun. I was moved by his description of private culture, whether it's AI-generated music, think your own personal breakup song, or a summary built just for you about something you care deeply about, and that is your own private cultural experience. Some art can be just for pure entertainment. It doesn't necessarily need to be anything beyond that. And that's okay. This is helpful. Josh isn't saying art is dead. He's saying there's more art to draw upon. You'll never get a Swiftie experience with a song made just for you, but you are getting a new experience. Okay, that's all for today. If you like what you heard, please follow the show and leave us a review. It'll help the show find other listeners. See you next week.